Yes, sir.
I'm going to hit record on the other recorder. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Daniel Mangena over at dreamwithdan.com. You're listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeffrey Smith. Come and dream with me.
Dream with me, together with me. Well done, Dan. All right, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Eliot Popkin, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Did you notice I went into DJ voice there?
It was wicked professional to talk in my Boston accent. Yes.
It's like as soon as I get into intro mode, I have to blah, 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 blah. Anyway.
Very dramatic.
Very dramatic. Hey, thanks for being here and talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that I'm a brand new author.
Right.
My first book, it's called Circle, Letters to My Younger Self. It's available at thecircleletter.com.
Right.
And there's a great coupon for all of your listeners. They just have to enter Circle20, and they get 20% off.
Circle20. That's perfect. I'll put it in the show notes. There'll be a link. It'll be awesome. Yes. So before we get too deep into this, we've already practiced out and we said we were going to tease some stuff, right?
Yeah.
So later on, not right now, you're going to tell us a story about what to do when your car gets repoed, and I can't wait. I have not heard this story yet, and I literally can't wait.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. And then the other one was chasing after a hit and run. So not necessarily
another
a light
car
story. Yes, another car story.
Yeah.
And it's sad that you got hit by a car. I'm sorry about that. It's hilarious that you ran after him and you caught him. I hope I didn't ruin it.
Yes. Okay, so that was part of it, but that's cool.
I kind of ruined a little. All right, I teased too much.
No, it's okay.
It's all good. All right, so let's get into Vroom Vroom Veer. We have to zoom back to the past and talk about where you grew up, and I know your childhood was rough, and that's part of your gig. So, but what was it like? Where did you grow up? And talk a little bit about being a kid.
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called Newton, Massachusetts. It's about 20 minutes outside of Boston.
Gotcha.
And, I mentioned this in the book, I believe. The street I grew up on, it was one of those beautiful streets that you would probably see in movies where there's trees lined both sides, and you would see the sun peeking through. It was just beautiful.
Yeah. I love those streets.
Yes, indeed. So, unfortunately, my childhood, it was very rough. My dad was an addict.
Okay.
And
ouch.
He was physically abusive to me most of my childhood for about 10 years or so. And then my mom passed from cancer when I was 15. So there's just a lot of life lessons that I realized I didn't learn ideally when I would have wanted to, like growing up. And so I spent my early adulthood, I think, just trying to, sabotaging a lot of opportunities and navigating through the world with a good amount of struggle.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. We're definitely, because that's a lot of what the book is about talking to your younger self and basically healing, like your healing journey after, I guess. Okay, good. But let's talk a little bit about maybe before we get into the nitty gritty of the abuse and then you getting away, because that sounds like an interesting story. Let's talk about like what happened after. So did you end up going to college or did you just go right into working, or what was like the immediate sort of like our first job situation?
I did. I ended up going to Berklee College of Music, which was right in downtown Boston.
My goodness.
Yes.
That's a big deal. That's hard to get into.
It was very hard.
Yes.
So I grew up like 20 minutes from it. And so I auditioned because I was close enough. I got to audition in person, and I sang "Yesterday" by the Beatles.
Wow.
And
Well, my goodness.
the guy said, "Okay,
song.
go into that." It's like the shows you see. I got a minute maybe of the song,
right,
but
gotcha.
they said go into that room, and I was like, oh dear. So I go into the next room, and then they said, do you know what just happened? And I said, no. And they said, you're accepted into our school. That's why you're in this room. And I said, what? So
wow, holy cow.
I couldn't believe it. So that was incredible for me. I studied songwriting there, and I feel like that was the first time I felt like.
And how old were you
home.
at this point? Oh yeah. Oh, you just said something there. You felt home. Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was 22.
22 when you got accepted?
Wait, I was 21.
Well, yeah. Okay. Close enough. That sounds about right.
18, 19, 20 or 21.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I get it. That's amazing. So how does that walk us through that moment when you just sort of like you do your thing yesterday, right? And then everybody cheers. Is there an audience? What's going on? Paint the picture for us.
There was in my head. No, I was by.
Really?
I was by myself, and I walked into the room.
You were by yourself. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh yeah.
Now, I mean, on you. So you sang to yourself. There was nobody you were singing in front of.
Oh no, pardon me. So I was singing to one person, the head of the vocal department.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
So you're standing on a stage, and they're sitting on a chair with a table in front of them or something, like an audition.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world's most stressful power position, right? They're sitting down behind a table and saying to you, "Go."
Let me I know this is hard for people to appreciate, but when I'm on stage, if there's like 2,000, 4,000 people, I'm really at home. It just feels like it's a big living room.
Right.
It's not intimidating. If you're sitting and there's 8 people just staring at you, oh my God, I could just pass out. That's just so much more intimate.
Yeah. Okay. So the one person was probably more terrifying than a room full of people. Because it's almost like you can anonymously think,
you could just hear like,
yeah, right.
That was a pen dropping.
And you're there to be judged. You're putting yourself out there. Yes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations, because that's a very courageous act in and of itself. Right?
Thank you. Yes.
It is. It's huge.
I loved it. It was such a nice moment.
That's huge. I mean, were you like, I remember I did, what did I do? Like musical theater in high school. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and this was sort of like became a theme that at some point, I guess when I was a junior in high school, right? I suddenly became this Clouseau savant, right? I was just improving my life and stepping into things, and then good things happened. It was weird, right? So another friend of mine was auditioning for the High School Musical, right? Little Abner, of all things. And he goes and shows up and he does his audition. And I'm sitting there in the audience watching all these kids that I know, and they're horrible. And I'm like, man, these guys all suck. And they're singing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I sing better than that in church every Sunday. So I get up there and I'm just like, hey, I'm just screwing around. I'm going to sing a song from church. And I belt out this church song, right? And everybody just goes nuts. Yeah, and then I become Little Abner. Isn't that crazy?
I have a similar a moment when I was I didn't sing in front of anyone. I was very private about it.
Okay.
And when I was 12, there were auditions for the all city chorus, and I thought, this is silly. And all my friends were auditioning, so I got up and I sang the theme to The Greatest American Hero.
I remember that show. That was an awesome show.
Look at what's happening to me. Yeah, such a good song.
Great
and
song.
The teacher looked at me like, what the? I didn't know you could sing. And I got into the chorus, and then I ended up doing it. And
wow.
And then I didn't sing publicly again until I was like 17. Yeah.
Wow. Were you practicing at home? Did you sing like all the time? Did you like it?
Yes. Every day. Hours.
There you go.
Yeah.
I learned that. I think I took voice lessons in Hawaii when I was still in the Air Force. And that's when I figured out that I didn't want to do it as a job. you know?
Yeah.
Like what it takes. So you know how hard it is to actually, there's a thing about, okay, I want to sing because I like it. And then there's this thing that you have to be really good, right? Being really good is like the extra step that I was not willing to pay. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I have no regrets. I still sing all the time. I just know I don't want to be really good. Does that make sense?
Well, Jeff, that, and then like the moment you realize it's a business, I have been rejected over like 4,600 times.
You have to really be super committed.
Oh my, you need,
because it's going to kick you in the nuts on occasion.
It kicks you
every
everywhere.
day. You know, it's like, I'm going to go sing again and people are going to kick me in the nuts and I'm okay with that.
There's so many things I could say in response to
actually,
that.
Yes. Dax Shepard has a podcast now. You know who Dax Shepard is? He's Kristen Bell's husband.
Ah, okay.
So that guy that was in Idiocracy. Now I can't say it. The movie Idiocracy. Is that it? Anyway, it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's got a podcast now. And it's about vulnerability. Right. So he did this thing about on Tim Ferriss's podcast, talking about his methodology for doing an audition. And it was amazing. Right. He was like, just treat it like another opportunity to act. And then it may or may not work out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I'm going to read these words how I think they should be read. And you might like that or not. And either are okay. And I thought, wow. That's really mature attitude towards getting judged.
I totally echo that. What I think for me, once I realized I'm just, because early on in the music industry, they kept trying to put me in a box. Can you just be more pop like John Mayer? Can you be in better shape? You sound too folky.
Better
just all
shape?
these. Oh yeah,
of course.
Got that
because you are a product, right? And they're trying to
such
sell
a product.
You. Yes.
And then I was like, what if I just concentrated? And I learned this lesson, I think just last week. But what if I just concentrate on being the best Eliot I could be? What would happen then?
Oh,
let me tell you.
That's so awesome, right? Yeah.
It's so freeing. And I think that's what I learned from writing the book. Like if you're just purely yourself, living in truth and freedom, that's when life begins, I think.
Oh, look at you. No, I get that. When I started learning that lesson of just trying to be more authentic, more me, right? Being honest only to me, right?
Yeah.
So like I am the ultimate authority of judgment on me. Now other people can judge me, that's fine. But my judgment is always worse. I think that's true, right? So if I stop doing that and at the same time just presenting who I think I am to people, two things will happen, right? People that are also have turned that corner into authenticity and vulnerability are attracted to that. They want more of that. They resonate with that. And the opposite is also true, right? So people that haven't, not so much. So it's a perfect attractor and filter authenticity, right?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Okay. There you go. And yet I digress.
That was a great digression.
Right. Most of them are. They're all really good. Okay. So you win this opportunity. So what is it like when you find your home, which is amazing, right? I mean, that's a gift that few of us ever find, right? So awesome. But talk us through how many years were you there and what was it like, and share some experiences from your time at Berkeley.
Yeah, I was there a total of 3 years, and then I graduated. Right. It was interesting. The first week you're in, what's that called where it's just the intro concert?
Orientation.
Thank you. Orientation.
Right.
And they're like, just say your first name and where you're from. And people are like, I'm from Fiji. I'm from Greece. And I was like, I'm from Newton. It's 20 minutes down the road.
It's down that way.
It was crazy. There were people from all over the world. And then
wow,
it got intimidating very quickly. I told myself I have no training. It's amazing they let me in. Let me just soak this up as much as possible. But you would be in
you had
classes.
zero training before that? You never had a coach or
1 year.
1 year voice lessons? Is that, or other musical lessons?
Basically, maybe 10 months of voice lessons.
Okay. And you were in choir, right?
I did do the choir when I was 12, and that was about
kind of
3
counts.
months.
That kind of counts.
I mean, thank you.
That kind of counts. I was in choir for 2 years. My 11th and 12th years of high school, I was in choir. And it was just amazingly fun. It's just because there's no pressure there. You like singing and you show up and you sing and you do your part.
So this was different than that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, oh, God, yeah. I mean,
so you were in a high pressure.
Your classmates are people that started when they were 3.
Oh, geez. That's a serious choir.
Oh my goodness.
I was in pressure 0 choir. So, okay.
Oh, so, well, no, not the choir when I was 12. That was super fun. But when I went to Berkeley, it was super competitive. There was, the one day I was like, hey, where's that guy Joshua? And they went, oh, he's on tour. Like these people were that good and already that established that they were going on tour and missing school. And I thought, okay, then
that's where I am.
Okay. So, there was a part of it for me that was very intimidating, but I loved it. And then at the end, I just took a year to write songs and I released my first album.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that all work from a like, how do you find business connections and like management and all that stuff? Is that just built into the Berkeley system? Are you meeting people or?
That would be the part where I alluded to earlier about me sabotaging a lot of opportunities.
Understood. But that happens to like a lot of artists all the time.
Oh, well, that's comforting to know. I thought I was the only person that squashed opportunities, but
no, I wouldn't say about squashing opportunities, just getting screwed over by the industry.
Oh, that's happened a lot too. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
that's
a whole. Let's start a whole nother.
That could be a podcast in and of itself.
Oh my goodness, there's not enough time.
Right.
But I will say, it's interesting. Like I'm learning a lot the last few years just about elevating myself in consciousness and vibration and energy.
Right.
And I say this with total respect to the younger version of myself. I did attract those people that take advantage of or just didn't know better in the moments.
Right.
And so I happen to do that, I don't know, like 200 times. No, not that, but just like
maybe
a lot in life.
Right. I get it.
A lot.
Right.
And so, yes, I met a lot of amazing people in school. And some of them went on to do. One of my good songwriting buddies, he wrote songs for Carrie Underwood and Rascal Flatts. I mean, just had all these hits.
Yeah.
And so for me,
there's a lot of money in that. I mean, you can live off being just a writer if you keep those publishing rights, right?
Ownership is key. That will be our 4th podcast. Yeah. Ownership is everything. So if you don't know better,
yes,
and you're
Tom
just so
Petty
excited
did that,
to say
right?
yes.
Remember that? Tom Petty thought publishing rights were referring to books. So he just let them go when he was like in his 20s in Florida. You didn't know this? Yeah. He sued, I think he had a record for the longest lawsuit. And he refused to pay lawyers. So he just kept showing up saying the same thing. Anyway, I digress. Right.
Wow.
Because he was like, you're not going to suck me dry. I'll just represent myself and show up and say, no. And eventually they got bored. Yeah. He got his shit back.
Yeah.
He just warmed down. Eventually he had more money than them, I think, so he had a lot of money eventually. I mean, he's Tom Petty. I mean, he was making money while he was going to see the lawyers.
Good point.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, Frank Zappa did that too. He got screwed over. And same deal. He eventually became what he hated and had his own label. Anyway, I digress.
Oh, wow. A circle, indeed. Yeah.
I think that's like the circle is like even George Lucas, right? I mean, when he made Star Wars, he did it as a protest against the studio system and then became a studio. Talk about circle, you know.
Wow.
And the Star Wars
That's
thing,
something.
right? He became the Darth Vader guy. So anyway. So, okay. How did the first album do?
It was a good learning experience.
Okay.
That was definitely a part where I suffered because of the lack of like business knowledge,
Sure.
building relationships, and working well with other people. But I did tour New England, and I had a few songs in a movie.
Okay.
It was
well, that pays bills in and of itself. Not a lot, not as much as people think. I get it. Yeah.
Well, no, yeah. It's I learned a lot about those
The business
moments
right?
of challenge. Yeah.
Right. I would imagine that most artists have that lesson, you know, waiting for them, right? It's almost like they should do a whole thing about the business of music and the business of show and all that stuff, because nobody gets that. You're so focused on your craft and that thing. I would imagine that's a lot of work, you know, being the creative side, right? Just coming up with your stuff.
Well, not to get too deep, but I think most people in life have that waiting for them.
That's true. You're right. That is true. It's not limited to singer-songwriters for sure, or show business.
No, I think what I learned is that the entertainment industry, people think it's so cutthroat and crazy, and it is, by the way.
Right. Like most business is. Anytime there's a lot of money.
Most business is.
Yes.
That's when I realized when I started being a business coach and would see the upper echelons of a few different industries and saw how nuts. I remember there was an environment like the movie Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay. Okay. An environment, a work environment where there's like coke and sex
into
going
environments like that. Like that. And here I am, the Zen church guy who meditates and likes to hike. And I'm just like,
and there's coke
watching all this
sex in the bathroom. Okay.
There literally was a gentleman doing
line of coke
on his desk.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's ice cream there's ice cream. Did you want some? And they turned around and I was like,
you probably don't want ice cream.
And I was like, are you, having your own kind of.
Did he ask you if you wanted a bump? No.
No.
Okay.
No. I don't even know what that, I'm so naive. I don't know.
Well, I didn't know what that is either.
Oh, okay.
So apparently that means a little snort of coke, not a line, just a little, you know, a tiny dose.
Oh, just like a good morning amount. Okay.
A little bump.
Oh,
a bump.
Shoot.
So I never did coke either, but I drove Lyft in 2014 for about a year or
Segway.
So. Right. And I had a rider who was doing bumps right next to me and constantly asking. He was so prototypical, the guy on coke. He was just like moving really fast in the car. Oh, yeah. And he kept asking me, you want a bump? You want a bump? You want a bump? And I'm like, I'm driving.
For God's sake, let me pull over first. No.
No, that's not what I said. Yeah. But it was just hilarious. You know, sometimes stereotypes are there for a reason because they're real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that person, had already been in trouble and they weren't allowed to leave their desk. You know, hence the, I mean, it is kind of ironic. That's why they were there at their desk. But yeah. So I brought ice cream back because I'm that type of person.
Maybe ice cream goes well with Coke. We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could tell more stories. That could be a separate podcast. Stories from Lyft.
Oh yeah, I did that. I drove for Lyft myself for 5 months.
Oh, you did? How did? When? Like near the beginning of the Lyft thing, or like year wise?
Yeah,
I was like.
I would say it was near the beginning,
and I was like in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did it in Los Angeles too.
Oh, wow. Did you hang out in Hollywood?
Things. No.
No.
Okay. I think I thought it would get crazy after like 9 p.m. So I only drove from like 4 to 9 or something like that.
Okay. Gotcha. I kind of experimented with times. I started doing the morning just because I like getting up early. And then later on, I started what you were doing. I would like try to zone in on that party crowd and just hang out. And there was a, oh, what was it? Like a Jack in the Box on Cahuenga that all the Lyft drivers parked at because it was free.
Oh, yeah.
You know that.
Right across the street from Amoeba Music.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the one. Yeah. All the Lyft drivers hang out there, right?
Oh.
Yep. So you go
Never
in,
knew.
you buy a burger, you eat your burger, you go to the bathroom, and then you go hang out and talk to the other drivers and wait for your phone to ding. And then we are really waiting for the 2 o'clock. So about 1:30, 2 o'clock, when all the clubs close, everybody wants to move from there to the after parties. And that means that you got that higher rate from the app.
Right.
Yeah.
Surge.
The surge pricing. Yes.
Yes.
Ugh, talk about a digression. Okay, so let's get into as we talk about cars, right?
Yes.
So what do we do when your car gets repoed? Let's do that story.
So this was a very defining moment for me because I had some amount of success, and then everything just kind of flatlined, dried up for me. I had 3 car repos. I lost properties. I had just been struggling. So I was on the bus because that's what you do when your car gets repoed.
You don't have a car, right?
In case everyone was curious. So I'm on the bus and I get off the bus stop, start walking towards my house at the time. And I realized in the moment I was afraid to make money again because I thought I would just make another mistake with it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And once I had that realization and I also realized at that point I was we can like go through life just trying to figure out things the Eliot way. But I had already known I don't really know the best way of doing things. I've displayed that over and over again, like for real. But I kept trying to figure it out myself.
Okay.
And I don't know how spiritual we are, but to let God in. And I was thinking like, well, did I have to lose everything to just try and realize it's not all about me? And God's like, well, did you? And I didn't think God sounded like that. You know, I thought God was like, my son.
Right.
From the mountain.
Yes.
But God's like, well, bro, did you have to lose everything? I mean, I've been here the whole time. And I was like, well, you sound way friendlier, first of all, than I thought.
Wow.
But,
really?
That's what I realized.
So was this the first time that you asked a question and got an answer like that? Because I remember that moment myself too.
Yep.
So it was shortly after a suicide attempt gone wrong. And yeah, you can listen to other podcasts. We don't need to get into that. It's kind of dark. But in Hawaii, and my current wife and I were living together again. And this was kind of a long story, so I don't want to get into it. But I didn't want to get married, and we'd been together too long. So in my 23, 24-year-old self, I was like, I guess we have to break up now because I don't want to get married. So I still like you. I want to hang out with you, and I might even love you, but I don't want to get married, right? So, okay. And so then I asked her to leave because we were living together temporarily. And the day after she said, okay, I'll leave, I'm at work and God says, you know, she's the one. Yeah. In the hallway, in between offices. And I just like, what? Right. And it was like shocking. Like that voice that you said, it's not like this big booming. It's just, it's like a whisper in the ear almost. And it's very much like a dude.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, and I didn't even ask. I guess I was just thinking about it. Like you asked, did I really have to go through all of this? Did I have to lose everything to learn about this? Did you? I think you did, because you did.
Yes. Well, the answer,
right. I think
if
you did.
didn't, yeah, it's a huge yes.
It was. Well, obviously, because you did.
Yeah.
To me, that was like one of those God answering you with your past,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
That is very much what the book is about.
God could have said, apparently.
I know you want to try and do it. Let's try it your way 10 more times. Yeah.
Right. So how about stop it? You didn't have to, but you did. So
Right.
it wasn't actually required, but maybe it was for you. Something like that. Yeah. But you don't
Very
have to
much so.
But you don't have to do it again, I think is what the lesson that you took out of it. You don't have to do it again.
Well, I am a hard learner.
Okay.
That was, yeah. So that was a moment of, I would just say the beginning of freedom, but I'm
Gotcha.
not to sugarcoat
You weren't done
it. Like
yet.
it wasn't. I mean, it was the beginning of me being like, well, okay, so what should I do?
I get it.
And still kind of flailing a bit.
Yeah. You don't go from like a wreck to okay overnight. There's a journey in there.
No, not and that's what I wanted
like
to
in the
impress
movies.
upon people.
Yeah.
It's so not like that. That I think because we're in such a fast-paced society and people can be impatient, especially how I
Really?
describe it to people. If I was, big time. If I was trained to think that, as an abused kid, I'm less than, I'm not worthy, that things are my fault, and then I keep impressing upon my mind these messages for years and years, it's not gonna happen in 4 weeks. That's
right.
Crazy. Like I got to give myself way more grace and freedom to begin the journey.
Yeah.
And that journey has taken.
It takes
years.
as long as it takes. It takes as long as it takes. And the thing is it's more of a, you have to practice not doing it by doing the opposite, right? I mean, you have to get into the yoga and the meditation and the nature and the walks and the simplify. And eventually you realize that like so much of what we hear on TV and movies and popular culture and the news, it's all just utter horseshit. Am I wrong?
I mean, if I drank, I would have a shot. Yeah.
Like the chasing of money and the status game. That's what I mean. It's just like so stupid. I mean, obviously we all have to eat, but simplifying, like I can tell a story. We have to get in before I tell, because I'll yak forever. Let's do tease number 2. So you chased after a hit and run. Okay.
I did.
Yeah. So why?
Okay, so it was right as I moved. Yeah, I had just moved to Hollywood to become a singer-songwriter. To further that career.
Gotcha.
And then I had lived there 3 months. It was July 4th, Independence Day.
Right.
And I was going through an intersection right at Sunset and Edgemont, right in the heart of Hollywood. And I had a green light.
Wow, Sunset and Edgemont. Okay. I know that.
It's right near all the hospitals.
Yeah, I know that spot.
And I was going through my green light, minding my business, and a car went through a red light and just smashed into me.
T-bone style?
And yes.
Ouch.
But I was a pickup truck. I was way bigger than them. So my truck had, a good amount of damage, but their car was
trash.
Oh my goodness. So I pulled over.
And they tried to drive away. Okay.
So this is 1999. So this is before cell phones.
There was no internet. There was no cell phone. Right.
Wait, did I even have a cell phone? There was no cameras on cell phones. Nothing like that.
99, there were dumb phones.
Yeah.
There were dumb phones. You might have had a camera, but it was super shitty.
I don't even think I had a camera.
Maybe. Okay.
But so I pull over and then I look at the car and they look right at me and then they just start driving away. And I've run marathons, so I was like, oh no, not today. So I started chasing them.
Yep.
And I got their license plate, and then I ran back to my car, wrote it down on a piece of paper.
Right.
And then I got out of my car, and there was a whole crowd of people looking at me like, how are you still alive?
Right. When are you going to pass out?
I mean, just adrenaline.
I get it.
So
I get it. Yeah.
I'm looking at everyone and they're like, I was of course in shock. I didn't realize what happened that they just all completely witnessed.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sitting there like, what do I do? And out of nowhere, I mean, not even 2 minutes, this tow truck driver comes. He said, hey, I can help you. I will drive your car to this mechanic. And I was like, okay. He said, where's the other person? And I said, oh, they left. It's a hit and run. And he said, they'll be back. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He said, they'll always come back. So I'm sitting in the truck waiting for him. And he comes back into the car and I look over and in a different car is the woman who hit me and some guy's driving. And I look at her and I go, oh. And then she looks at me and goes, oh, and then they speed away.
Wow.
And so the tow truck driver is like, oh no. And he starts with my truck in the back. We start chasing them. And then,
and they're in another car. Wait a minute.
They're in another car, which went way faster than the tow truck.
Obviously.
So we lost them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you had the other license plate.
Yeah. So we eventually, I submitted the license plate and a few days later I got a call that they found her.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Ugh. She would have not been in trouble at all had she just stayed there. That's not.
Well,
not really.
She may have been under the influence of stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
So there's that factor too.
But still, though, I mean, that's still gonna. I mean, you're not gonna get away. Are you? Do people get away with that? I guess they do. Huh? Not from you, though.
Oh no, not from this marathon runner. Yeah,
that's a good skill sometimes, right?
I mean, it came in handy in that moment. My goodness. Right. Yeah.
I can run for 13 miles. Sorry, 26 miles.
Yeah. I can.
And probably further if you wanted to. You'd probably keep going. Oh,
gosh. I don't know. They have those ultra things and that I know,
but you probably could if you wanted to.
Sure.
Because once you've done 26, you can just keep going, right? If I had a support team, right, like a chase car and bananas.
Sure. Maybe a choir singing at intervals. Why not? I would do it.
Hey, good story. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
True story.
So we are getting close to wrapping up unless you can go past noon.
I can go past.
You can go past? Good. Because I want to get into sort of like that story about how after your mom died, if you want to do that. Let's do that.
Sure.
Okay. So how did that, so you are already being abused for what you said, like 10, 15 years?
9, 10 years. Yeah.
9 or 10 years. Okay. And then, so how did your mom die?
My mom had breast cancer. So she had been ill for quite some time.
Right.
In and out of hospitals and rehab centers and on multiple different treatments and drugs. And so she was not coherent, available for a good amount of years. And so when she passed away, I knew that I wanted the abuse to stop and didn't know
what to do. Right.
Yeah. So it was 3 days after she passed. And that was actually the first time in my life I talked to God. And I said, I don't want to be here. And I thought, and again, this is in the mid 80s. So this is before internet and Googling and figuring out, where I could go.
Right. It's hard.
There was one little bus that went through my small town where I lived. And so, and I didn't.
And you were 15 at this point?
15. Yeah. And I didn't have anyone that I felt I could trust to talk about it.
No teachers, no mentors.
Okay. None of my friends.
No other parents, family members?
None that I felt like I could verbalize what was going on. I was very, very closed off at that point. And so I decided I would stay in the house, but the abuse would stop. And I didn't know how it would stop, but there was a moment probably 2 or 3 weeks after that something I could just tell my dad was upset about something that had nothing to do with me. And he came towards me like he was going to start hitting me. And I just stood up to him and we just locked eyes for like 10 seconds. And then he just muttered something and walked away. And there was, yeah, that was the last
Standing
time
up to
I'd
the
been.
bully. And you didn't even have to
Yes.
throw a punch?
No, I was literally willing
Well, you
to
knew
fight
you
if
were
I
going
had
to
to.
get beat anyway at that point, right?
Yes.
I might as well, get some shots in.
Listen, this is
No,
we're
I
gonna
get it.
end this.
I
so,
get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I went through probably not technically abuse, but like my brother is 3 years older than me. So we had sibling rivalry going on, right? And I remember when, I have to think how old I was, probably like 5th, 6th grade, something like that in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
where I started wanting to stand up to him, because up until that point, I was just in the take it mode. I think, because I had nothing, he had 3 years and lots of weight on me. So any kind of retaliation was going to be swiftly dealt with physically. And then I don't know why, but I just got this rage, right? He did something, he said something, and I just raged, and I just went and punched him out of the blue. Not a fight. Nope. Just walked up and punched him. And that did not go well for me.
Oh, I was wondering where that story was going to go.
Yeah, he kind of leaned into it. But eventually, I kept fighting back, I remember one time I wanted to kill him. I really thought I was going to kill him. I got like the dog's water dish. It was like one of those light metal pails. And I was like hunting him around the house. Where is he? I'm going to take him out. And my mom talked me down, and after that, I had this sort of like love-hate relationship, because once I got to like age 14, I realized he was good with ladies. And then suddenly he was awesome. And he stopped picking on me a little bit. So the standing up to bully thing actually does work. It just took a lot of time for me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that resolve itself with your dad?
Well, I don't know that
You
it ever
stayed
really
there?
did.
Okay. All right.
I did stay there, but it's interesting with what you just said, because the physical manifestation of the abuse stopped, but there was still
Psychological abuse. Yeah.
there's a lot of mental abuse,
Right.
verbal abuse, and I was still not dealing with it from a health and recovery standpoint.
Right.
I was still stifling all my feelings and not talking about it.
Right.
So my relationship, my dad ended up passing away about 9 years ago. I never had a healthy, active relationship with my dad. I did realize one of the main reasons I moved to California is I just felt like I really needed to distance myself physically.
Get as far away as you could.
Yeah, I wanted to know what it would feel like to live not surrounded by that type of energy. And then ultimately that's, I think, why I wrote the book. Because I wanted to know what freedom feels like, because I felt like I never got to feel that.
Right.
And writing it has really,
it's like self-therapy almost, right?
Huge. Yeah.
So what sort of letters do you write to your younger self now that because that whole concept is very healing. I did it myself. So some of those stories that I told, like suicide attempts and, borderline abuse, brother, I don't know if that's technically abuse, but it's sibling rivalry. It feels the same. You're being abused. I read a book by, of all people, Dr. Phil. And he suggested that you do these sort of like, you relive the story in your mind, and then you look at your piece, right? And you say, okay, and here you can now see that, you were a kid and you had limited, personal resources, psychologically, physically, and none of that was your fault. Now, you don't have to live in victim mode. You can take it. You can forgive yourself. You can forgive them. But that, to me, was like life-changing. So I think you and I went through a very similar journey with talking to our past and reliving it, taking it out, unpacking it, looking at all the things you don't want to look at.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about it. So what were some of the letters like, and just tonally talk about some of the big ones. Like, how did you say, like, did you get around to forgiving yourself? Did you get around to forgiving your dad? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, great question, Jeff. So I think at the end of each chapter, so the book is an autobiography, and at the end of each chapter, I write a letter to that version of myself, saying everything I would have wanted to hear at the time. So
nice. That's good.
Yeah. So and some of the letters are deep, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Sure.
There was a lot of forgiving of myself. I think it's pretty common for children that have been abused that they just blame themselves.
Right.
If I was just a better kid.
Right.
And as far as forgiving my dad, I think I got to a place where I did completely honor, and I wanted to get to this place where I could completely honor who he was. He served as well. He was in the Army. And thank you for your service, by the way.
You're welcome. It was fun.
Oh, good. I actually don't know that it was fun for my dad. I think that's where a lot of his
PTSD
demons really came. Yes, without a doubt. And very untreated too.
Right.
So I have total respect for that part of his journey. I did forgive the person as far as, but I realized if I do want to have happiness in my life and freedom and success, all these things that I've wanted, it's a matter of self-care and self-preservation to politely distance myself from the behaviors or those people that I feel like are really toxic to me. And so
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So that was my dad for many reasons. And so doing that and writing the letters was it's probably the most healing thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. Keep doing it. I mean, and I wish I could go do therapy. I just don't know what to ask for, if you know what I mean. I wish there was like a mental health checkup. I don't know what's wrong because I'm not an expert, but I'm coming in for my annual mental health checkup. I think that should be a thing because I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. If I knew what was wrong with me, then I wouldn't need a mental health checkup. If you know where I'm going with this.
You hit the nail on the head. Like I did realize this early on, that someone like Michael Jordan, I always think of, who's had a coach his whole professional life. I would say that's one of the reasons he became so completely amazing. But when we think about our mental health and taking care of ourselves, why are we so still to this day so hesitant as a society to just have a coach, have a mentor, have someone we can talk to twice a month?
Yeah, whatever.
Or a therapist.
Right, whatever
it is, whatever it takes that resonates with you. We can go to the gym or we can go to church and temple and we can meditate. But when it's about everything up in here,
right?
I'm pointing to my head. Why do we still feel, especially as men, we're so like, I've got to be Superman and I've got to figure this out on my own. No,
right.
I joked earlier, that's my 20s and my 30s.
Yes.
And the beginning part of my 40s.
Right.
And it's like, no, I don't want to I want to receive, and I want to just be a child of God and just be willing to grow. And that's the thing, like growth looks so different than what my mind thinks it's supposed to be. And that's one of the beauties of it.
I get it. Wow. You said a lot.
I just kept going. Pardon me. Yeah.
No. It's just hard to respond because I have to pick a thing. But you said a lot. So thank you. Thank you for sharing and being open and vulnerable for sure. I think there's where I was going with that was I think there's a mental health crisis going on that we're now aware of. Thanks to the many silver linings of the pandemic, that we don't have a mental health system in this country. So when I say that, I would like that to be. I think everybody that has healthcare, when they go in for their annual checkup, should be able to talk to a mental health professional with nothing wrong. Just say, hey, how's it going? And go through a checklist, and do like mental health hygiene, if there is such a thing. We don't have that, right? We have none of this. But everybody, I think, would thoroughly benefit from that. I mean, we do blood work every year, and we don't, there's nothing wrong with us, right? Let's check your blood. We'll just check your blood. Why don't we check our brain?
Let's check our level of happiness and fulfillment in our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you mentioned the pandemic, if there was one thing that I thought was really cool, was that everyone had this time to be at home.
Yes.
And I feel like all those distractions, like we're so busy and we're just running through life.
Right.
What if we weren't? So then the life that you do have today, is it fulfilling? Are you really happy? Are there other things that you could be doing professionally or even casually in your hobbies and with the people around you that would make you even more happy?
Right.
And then I'm learning now, I'm just beginning to put this into practice in life. There's no ceiling on happiness. We just think, well, if we have
You're right.
If we've got a good job and everyone around us is healthy, it's like, okay, let's keep the barometer, let's keep raising it.
Right.
That's what I want to do.
I learned something. Now we are wrapping up for sure because we're getting close to like an hour on the show, but that's okay.
Okay.
I've got a couple more things I want to hit on.
Yes.
So during the pandemic, I think another thing that I learned, and I just realized this maybe this week, because I talked about my suicide attempt last week on my podcast. So whenever I bring that up again, I think about it again, right? That's what happens when you talk about a thing, right? And I only just realized that suicide attempt was briefly after the first time I moved out and lived sort of like in my own apartment. Up until that point, I was either in a house or a dorm. Okay. So I was like experiencing isolation on a regular basis for the first time in my life. And I already know that causes depression in and of itself if you isolate, right? And when I say isolate, I mean physically, right? Just not that many people around. So during the pandemic, I've totally been isolated, but my wife's in the other room. Psychologically, I'm fine because I know she's right over there, right?
Right.
But as mammals, if we are physically alone, and I realized this too, again, in a different scenario where I was screwing around after I retired from the Air Force. My wife kept working. Then I went to school for 3 years. And after that, that's when I was in my driving Lyft and doing temp jobs. Totally isolated. I would like see a buddy and strangers like once a week. Other than that, I was alone. I mean, physically alone, like for huge swaths of day. Totally just went bonkers. Okay. Depressed again, for no other reason. So that was a lesson, right? For everybody listening, that physical isolation is a cause of depression in and of itself. No other cause necessary. So don't do that. Get a dog if you have to. Get a VR headset and eye gaze.
Oh, there you go.
Or, get on Zoom with people and look them in the eye. That'll do the trick. That helps. Yeah. Okay. So let us talk about thecircleletter.com. And the coupon code is circle20.
Yes.
Okay. And how can folks you know what? Talk about anything you want about eliotpopkin.com and the music career and how that's going.
Yeah. So I'm at that point in my life where I'm learning balance. So
good for you. I can tell.
Yeah. Thecircleletter.com is where people can support the book and make a purchase.
Right.
And please use the coupon code and thank you in advance. And then eliotpopkin.com that highlights my music. And I have a new song coming out called Running. It's available on iTunes as of today. And
wow. That's perfect.
Yeah. And then it comes out officially on all platforms June 3rd. So it's what's called in the industry a pre-release. So they can buy it on iTunes today and enjoy it.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you so much. I have to say, this is sort of like this sort of conversation is the thing for this show, right? So thanks.
Oh, my pleasure.
It was just like super easy and fun and deep and life affirming for me. So thank you. And thanks for sharing and being open, honest, and vulnerable. That takes a lot of courage, and keep doing it. Thank you.
Well, thank you to you, and thank you to all of your viewers. And I appreciate that my book, it is deep. And for some people, it might be a challenging read, but the level of freedom and peace that we can each have in our lives, I think that's one of the reasons that we're all here. And so just a big thank you, and appreciate all the support.
Thank you, Eliot. This has been a hoot and a half. Thank you. You have a good
2
one.
hoots.
2 hoots.
Thank you too as well.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.